Hello to grade 11 senior high school learners. This is Ma'am J. Maria S.P. Castillo, your teacher in 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. Today, I will introduce to you a new dimension of lesson. Now, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Are you ready to learn something new today? Oh, I love this period. Yes! Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy watching our lesson in 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world.
At the end of the lesson, you are expected to, number 1, identify geographic, linguistic, and ethnic dimensions of Philippine literary history from pre-colonial to contemporary and representative text from the regions. Number 2, write a close analysis and critical interpretation of the literary text. And number 3, show a sense of adaptability of the Philippine literary history.
Before we go on with our discussion, let us test first your prior knowledge.
Please get a small piece of paper and try to complete the literary timeline below. Choose your answers from the given choices written below. Letter A, Japanese period. Letter B, rebirth of freedom. Letter C, Post-EDSA. D, American period. Letter E, pre-Spanish period. Letter F, 21st century. G, Spanish period. H, period of enlightenment. I, period of activism and new society. J, period of literature in English. I'll give you 1 minute to accomplish this task. Go! Okay, time's up. Keep your answers with you because later on, we'll find out if your guesses were correct.
Before colonizers came here in our country, we Filipinos already established our own literature.
Our forefathers already had their literature, which reflected in their customs and traditions. The Spanish friars burned their alphabet in the belief that they were works of evil or were written on materials that quickly perish, like the barks of trees, dried leaves, and bamboo cylinders, which could have not remained firm even if efforts were made to preserve them. Our unique geographic location is a reason why we are rich. And the first thing that I will tackle for today is all about the Philippines pre-colonial period, or also known as pre-Spanish period. Pre-colonial period or pre-Spanish period is characterized by folktales, wherein it is stories about life, adventure, love, horror, and humor where one can derive lessons. Example of folktales are Alamat ng Araw at Gabi, at ang Langgam at ang Tipak Lang. Another literature that we have during pre-colonial period or pre-Spanish period is epic. They are the long narrative poems in which a series of heroic achievements or events are dealt with at length, usually of a hero. Examples are the story of Biyag ni Lamang at Ibong Adarna. Another literature from the pre-colonial period or pre-Spanish period is the folk songs. They are the one of the oldest forms of Philippine literature that emerged from pre-colonial period, and they are also songs mirrored the early forms of literature. The next literary period in the Philippine history is the Spanish period. Literature in this period may be classified as religious prose and poetry and secular prose and poetry. There are various Spanish influences on Philippine literature. The first one is the first Filipino alphabet, called Alibata, was replaced by Roman alphabet. Next, the Christian doctrine became the basis of religious practices. Another Spanish influence in the Philippines was that European legends and traditions brought here became assimilated. Another influence we have from Spanish is the folk song. It manifested artistic feelings of the Filipinos and showed their innate appreciation for love and beauty. Examples are Leron Leron Sinta, Dandan Soy, Ating Kung Sing Sing, and Sarong Banggi. Another influence that the Spanish had in the Philippines was the recreational play. There were many recreational plays performed by Filipinos during the Spanish times. Almost all of them were in a poetic form. Examples are Senakulo, Salubong, and Panunuluyan. The next period is a period of enlightenment from 1872 to 1898. During this period, the propaganda movement was established. In 19th century, Filipino intellectuals educated in Europe, called Ilustrados, began to write about the age of colonization. This movement was spearheaded mostly by the intellectual middle class. And they were our national hero, Jose Rizal, Marcelo H. del Pilar, Antonio Luna, Graciano Lopez Haina, Jose Maria Panganiban, Mariano Ponce, and Pedro Paterno. And here are some of Rizal's writing during the propaganda movement. The first one is Mi Ultimo Adios, Noli Me Tangere, Sobre la Indolencia de las Filipinas, and Filipinas dentro de 100 años. Here are some of Del Pilar's writings: Pag-ibig sa tinubuang lupa, Kaingat kayo, and Dasalan ng Tuksohan. However, here are some of Haina's writings: Ang Fray Botod, La Hia del Fraile, and Everything is Ambog, and Talumpating Paggunita kay Columbus. And another period in the Philippine literary history is the period of the New Society from 1972 to 1980. The period of the New Society started on September 21, 1972. The Carlos Palanca Awards continued to give annual awards. Poems dealt with visions, regard, or native culture, customs, and the beauties of nature and surroundings. Newspapers donned new forms. And Filipinos before were hooked also in reading magazines and comics. Then, we have the period of the Third Republic from 1981 to 1985. After 10 years of military rule, martial rules was at least lifted in January 2, 1981. Former President Marcos called the New Republic of the Philippines. Poems during this period were romantic and revolutionary. After that, we have the Post-EDSA revolution, which started from 1986 and ended on 1995. Once more, the Filipinos regained their independence, which they lost 20 years ago. In 4 days, from Feb 21 to 25, 1986, that so-called people power, Lakas ng Bayan, prevailed. The new crony newspapers that enjoyed an overnight increase in circulation were the Inquirer, Malaya, and the People's Journal. And last but not least, literary period in the Philippine history is the 21st century period. In this period, the 21st century learners are demanded to be ICT inclined, complete with the details and format writing as well. New codes or lingoes are used to add flavor in literary pieces produced nowadays. And those are the different literary periods in Philippine history. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a lot.